Professor, you want to come on up? Come up here for a minute. Just for a few. We're not going to be long. Since you're here. So this is what we're going to do. Y'all, we are here. Where you going? Oh, okay. Yeah, right here. Yes, right here. We're gonna, let's see, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover a little ground here, and then we've got a panel coming up at 7 o'clock. As we gather here for the public comment. So tonight our panel at 7 o'clock is going to deal with gun violence. Blood on the Bridge, gun violence from Bloody Sunday to today. Black Voters Matter is going to be here for that conversation. So we invite you to stay. We've not had a conversation quite like that in some time. Representative Chestnut, come on up here, man. So we're going to hear from some of these distinguished people, do a little housekeeping. How's everybody feel? Y'all enjoy the mock trial? I know, but we're gonna have that in the other panel too. I'm sorry. Where you, let me see. We got two up here. You know, you saw Ruth down there. We'll start this way only because I know my brother has some other obligations. He's going to be featured on a panel tomorrow at Legal Defense Fund is sponsoring. Legal Defense Fund has been doing this for some time. We're going to, before we hear from Professor Glaude, though.
What time is that?
4 o'clock. 4 o'clock at the Edmondite Missions, right? That's right across the street from Tabernacle. So here with LDF to tell us about tomorrow and to invite us here and also to introduce one of the panelists to say a few words, maybe if he wants to give us a preview of tomorrow, but we know Professor Glaude can talk to us about anything for that matter. But we do want you to go hear him tomorrow at 4, but we'll give you a little preview tonight. Here from the Legal Defense Fund. LDF has been doing this for a long time. In fact, LDF's battles were some of the first forays into what was the real revolution in America for democracy. So that was not 1776. There was no democracy before 1965. I don't care what anybody says. So now when we say 1619, we also have to say 1965. And so let's be clear, that is what the battle now is against, to roll all of that back. And they've even recruited an apartheid South African to help them. Some of the folk voted for Trump in this generation never heard of that. So what is that? How you gonna go back 40 years and bring back something like that? Who's talking about that anymore? Apartheid. You know, so, and they on get back time. They on revenge time behind that. Isn't that something? So we want to first hear from the Legal Defense Fund, one of our good brothers who does a lot of organizing there and has put tomorrow's program together, and they always do a great, great program. Our brother from the Legal Defense Fund, Demetrius Kauser. Please give him a round of applause. He'll tell us a little bit about tomorrow. Is that you? Yes, on there. Is it lit up? Yeah, I probably got to hold it down.
We're gonna get this thing going. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Demetrius Kauser. I'm a voting rights attorney at the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. Coming down to Selma is like going home to my hometown of Waycross, Georgia. It's country, but I love it. If y'all know what Waycross is, it's way on across Georgia, down at the bottom of the map. Tomorrow, we have a fantastic panel at the Edmondite Missions at 4 p.m. featuring, as Reverend Mark mentioned, Dr. Glaude, and we're looking forward to it. And just like Reverend Mark also mentioned, the United States of America was not a democracy before 1965. And this year marks 60 years since we become a true multiracial democracy. 60 years is quite a milestone. So y'all come out and y'all partake in a discussion about making democracy deliver. Again, that's 4 p.m. at the Edmondite Missions here in Selma. Appreciate you very much.
You know, of course, that's on water.
Street.
Oh, that's
Broad
Broad
Street.
I'm sorry, I'm tripping. Okay, it's Broad Street. I got
Same
streets.
street.
Who?
Same street with the bridge. Same road.
Street, right, Broad Street. So you all, let's give Demetrius a round of applause. And one of the panelists is our good brother here, who has become one of the most prolific public intellectuals of our generation and of our time. And that's very, very important, because we need the types that we had back in the day, James Baldwin, the contemporaries of Dr. Chavis, who knew James Baldwin and many of the other great public intellectuals of that era. And he'll be joining us tomorrow, and just want to give him an opportunity to say a few words about why it's important for him to be here in Selma and what it means to him, his journey, his work, and his interpretation of our struggle. Professor Eddie Glaude, if he could say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am deeply humbled to be here. I'm a country boy from Moss Point, Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
I grew up on the water
Huh.
and made my way to Morehouse, and now I'm at Princeton. It's a blessing. None of it would have been possible without the sacrifices that Bloody Sunday represents. We're in a moment where we have to make a choice. What tradition do you identify with? What is the basis for how you see the world and how you understand, right, the way in which you ought to orient yourself to the world? We live in a country, and I'll say this really quickly, Brother Mark, that is captured by, in some ways, a tragic loop. One minute, it defines its commitment to freedom. The next minute, it rejects it with a startling brutality. And the next minute, it then engages in a sentimental act of reform. And then the next minute, we see the same thing again, generations after generations. Our task in this moment is to grab hold of the tradition that has made us possible and to finally say no, to refuse everything that Donald Trump stands for, and to embrace everything that has made us possible. And the question becomes, are you too satisfied? The question becomes, have you taken the bribe? And the charge rests with what will you do in this moment that is required of you, because guess what? We were born for such times as
That's
these.
right. That's right.
And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow.
Yeah. Amen. Now, we went from Waycross, Georgia, to Moss Point, Mississippi. Folks, it wasn't in the plan for folks from Waycross, Georgia to be fighting for voting rights and getting law degrees. And it most certainly wasn't in the plan for folks from Moss Point, Mississippi to be at Princeton. Amen?
Amen.
So so think about that now. So when people say now, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do, I can't make it, this is terrible. We have seen this movie before. We've been here before.
That's right.
And our ancestors, the words trauma and depression and I can't make it didn't exist. Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass didn't have the luxury of saying, you know, I just can't do this anymore, I can't go any further. We can do this. It is in our DNA to accomplish what we must. As Marcus Garvey said, up you mighty race, we can accomplish what we will. Amen. So tomorrow, 4 o'clock, don't meet us there. Beat us there. I've heard they might even let me be on the panel for a couple of minutes. I don't know.
I think so.
It's confirmed.
It's confirmed now? Okay. So I'll even be there. But don't come to see me. Come to see Eddie Glaude and all the other great panelists that'll be there.
Can you say where it is again?
The Edmondite Missions on Broad Street. Put in your GPS. Everybody's GPS now. Even though I regret us using these electronic devices whose batteries depend on mineral wealth in the Congo. We got to deal with that at some point, y'all. All right. All right. So now let's come back to Selma for a minute. I'm going to put her on the spot a little bit. I want to hear from someone. We should hear from someone who is a native Selma. We got a husband and wife team. The husband is not from Selma, but the wife is. He does something else. We want to hear from him. We honored this as our couple. We honored these two as our couple of the struggle last year. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, as our couple of the struggle to be honored will be Megger and Merle Evers. And so we look forward to that. And that will be at the Freedom Flame Awards tomorrow night, which is, I'm told, sold out. But come on through. If we can make room, we'll do the best we can, okay? Ruth Cummings, who was raised here in Selma and was here on Bloody Sunday, correct?
Yes.
Ruth,
yes.
let's give Ruth Cummings a round of applause.
Thank you so much. I grew up 1 mile on the other side of the bridge. We were so anticipating the marches to come, so we stood on the side of the road just waiting for the marches to come. We didn't get marches. All we saw was what we thought was smoke. And living in a town where we know there were those who like to set us on fire, we thought the worst of the worst. Didn't get quite that bad, but it was bad enough. I had a brother, his name was Hosea. He was on the bridge on Bloody Sunday. My parents wouldn't let the girls go. They made us stay at home. And when he returned, he was just that. He was bloody. He had a gash in his head. And he continued, every time they gathered on the bridge, he was there. Every time they gathered, he was there. He walked the entire 50 miles. My mother, along with me and some others, fed lunches to those who were on the road to Montgomery. I was actually at the last day in Montgomery when Dr. King made his speech. I was also privileged to be one of the children who were called to be a demonstrator, because after the adults had been so harassed and threatened and beaten, they say, surely they won't do that to the children. So we were able to demonstrate right this courthouse. We demonstrated because we needed to have the right to vote. I don't know if you all know just how hard it was for us to try to get the right to register, not just to vote, but to register. First they told you you had to pay X amount of dollars. We raised the dollars. Then they say you got to take a test. We took the test, passed the test. They say we cheated. Then they gave you another test, passed that test. Then they brought you back in and they say, look, in order for you to register to vote, you're going to have to stand here and name all 67 counties in Alabama and tell us what the county seat is. That's when we knew we needed some help.
Amen.
And the help came. And it eventually ended in, of course, the Voting Rights Act being signed. But the bad thing about it is we are almost right back where we started.
Yeah, yeah.
And the road ahead, we have got to do what the song says. We've got to march on till victory is won.
Hold, keep that mic right there. Now we're going to hear, thank you, Ruth. Let's give Ruth another round of applause for sharing that. And that's what it was, folks. These were regular folk just like us who changed not just America, but the world. And they want to take us back. There's any analogy to be drawn. The voting rights won in 1865 during Reconstruction that were then taken from us during the Reclamation is what it's called, the White Reclamation. Redemption, I'm sorry. And so it took 100 years to get those rights back. And really that's what we're seeing today before our very eyes. What we won in 1965, they're trying to take that back. And so this is sacred ground. This is the only civil rights event that is commemorated every year because of the sacredness of it. And let me just say, this is my, I think, the 30th year I've come.
Wow.
And so I practically grown up here. My great-great-grandmother was born, my paternal great-great-grandmother was born here in Selma in 1858. So I even have a little bit of blood here in Selma myself. But this is sacred space. You know, this is our Calvary, our cross as a people when it comes to democracy. And the example of blood that was shed for the sins of America, we say Christ died for the sins of us all and the sins of the world. Folks in Selma suffered for the sin and the original sins of America. Amen. And so that is why this is such a special place. And it's funny, we never have to beg people to come. A lot of people have passed away over the years, but we never had to remind Dick Gregory to come. His daughter, Ayanna Gregory, is sitting right there. I try to get her to come up here. She won't do that. But, because she does this to me sometimes. But Dick Gregory's daughter, Ayanna, is here. Is Johansi in here? I don't see him. Yeah, they're standing by Ayanna so everybody can see. We'll be hearing her sing some over the weekend. Come on in, Naya. Come on in. Let's see. And back in the day, everybody would come to Selma. The whole Lyndon Johnson family would come. All the Kennedys would come. And we never had to invite those people. We never had to send a letter. It was just organic because so many lives were lost here. Malcolm X was here. And we learned, you know, we talked to some old timers, or Ayanna's father, Dick was here once, and we were out eating, and the man said, I want to tell y'all something. I said, what? He said, when Malcolm spoke at Brown Chapel, and he sat next to Mrs. King, I arranged to take him to see Dr. King in person. And this was on February 4th. And he said the two of them discussed getting together shortly thereafter to finish what Marcus Garvey started at the League of Nations and go to the United Nations on our behalf. So there was the beginning of a discussion of them coming together. Because it was a big deal for Malcolm to come to Selma in the first place. When he was in the nation didn't connect itself to a lot of these struggles. He wanted to be in, right? So after that conversation, folks began to think about, wait a minute, this might happen. So, you know, I have my own hypothesis. Less than 3 weeks after Malcolm left Selma, he was assassinated. I think folks realize we can't let him come in here. Now think about it. As Malcolm was evolving and wanting to insert himself, and Ilyasa is here, we'll see her tomorrow, his daughter, and we've talked about this and done some research, so we have our own hypothesis or theory, Professor, that was about to be a coming together. And they turned up the clock, we can't, and if Malcolm had lived, we kind of feel like within that next month, the march was from Selma to Montgomery was about a month and a half later. Malcolm might have come here and joined Dr. King and everybody else, because the whole world came to Selma. Amen? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine Malcolm being here in Selma standing next to Dr. King? J. Edgar Hoover said the civil rights movement was the greatest threat to national security since the Civil War. That's right. That's him, because he knew it was going to change everything. Ruth's husband is here, Claude. There's a marriage between civil rights and organized labor. We all know that. That's no small thing. We just buried one of my mentors, Reverend James Lawson, last summer, and his wife Dorothy in December. And he was one of the ones that brought labor and civil rights together in a way that could never be torn asunder. He brought Dr. King to Memphis to stand with the sanitation workers strike. Where were you? In what city? In Charlotte. What do you all may not know about Dr. Chavis?
Yes, I do.
No, I said, what you may not know about him. You see that? She want to be sure she knew you. She want everybody to know she know you, Ben. All right, Laurie, I see you. Johansi just came in, Dick Gregory's son. He's sitting right there. Give him a round of applause. That's the baby. I don't think he like me to call him that, but he's the 10th child. He is the baby of the 10th. Who? Dr. Chavis was how old? 16.
19.
Yeah.
I was 20.
Dr. Chavis was 20 years old, organizing for the SCLC in Charlotte. And what a lot of people don't know, Dr. King was to have left Memphis and joined him in Charlotte for the sanitation workers strike there. So this is all living history. Labor, Dr. King stood with labor, supported labor, said SEIU was his favorite labor organization, but he gave his, oh, there you go again. But he actually gave his life for AFSCME.
Right.
Because the sanitation workers were trying to organize a strike there. Here's a union. Now, we got big news this morning, and it hadn't really made the mainstream as much because folks take everything for granted. No good Donald Trump struck down collective bargaining and the union,
Right.
dissolved the union for the TSA,
Right.
which comes under the American Federation of Government Employees. Now, we see the TSA and we go through the airport. So are you really concerned about our safety? What did Reagan do? Now, Dr. Glaude is somewhat, he's a historian among other things, but folk, they keep doing the same thing. Reagan came after the air traffic controllers. Musk is trying to get the air traffic control contract. This morning, they dissolved the union of the TSA. Now, this is not American Federation of Government Employees, but this is his own black history. This is the first black president, Roos Husband. That's his first title, Roos Husband. Second title, that's the most important one. The second important title he has is first black president of the Communication Workers of America.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Now,
Mark.
hold it up, Claude. I want y'all to understand something, how we have built these unions. How many black presidents we have? American Federation of Government Employees, AFSCME, SEIU now,
Right.
CWA, that's you.
AFGE.
AFGE, NEA, National
NEA,
Education Association. Is that it?
Yeah, NEA, and I think that's it.
Longshoreman?
Yeah. I don't know if he's the international president, though. But
Okay.
he's the president, but I don't know if it's a national office.
Okay, so that's how many black presidents of unions we have. We have put so much in. We built these unions. We went out from the plantation into industry and have given our service in this way. But we want to, Claude is also a big supporter of the Jubilee and has given us money over the years and has raised money for us.
Thank you.
So let's hear a word from Claude, and Five Rose got to say something. She's got to go.
Well,
Claude
actually,
Cummings,
Mark,
give Claude Cummings a round of applause.
Thank you. Actually, you stole my thunder.
I'm sorry.
Because that's okay. I didn't know how many had heard about this. You know, the great poet Maya Angelou said, when they show you who they are, believe them. And you know, unions all year last year tried to tell everyone that 2025, Project 2025 is not a joke. It's for real. They're going to implement this. And here's a good example. Unions have come under attack. How many of you fly? How many of you fly? Because this is going to adversely affect you. As Mark said, the Department of Homeland Security said Friday that it's ending the collective bargaining agreement with the tens of thousands of frontline employees at the Transportation Security Administration, marking a major effort to dismantle union protection under the Trump administration. The TSA union called it an unprovoked attack and vowed to fight it. The department criticized the union whose staffers are responsible for keeping weapons off airplanes and protecting air travel. Officials said that poor performers were being allowed to stay on the job and that the agreement was hindering the ability of organizations to safeguard our transportation system and keep Americans safe. Now, I travel a lot, and when I go through TSA, I see a lot of folk that look like me. Simple as that. And what they're saying is if someone gets disciplined on the job, they don't want the union to protect them. Trump and his minions said they wanted to try to get rid of unions. So this is what they're trying to do starting here. But I'm telling all of you that unions are just not going to take it. I was late coming in today because I talked with the president of AFGE, President Kelly, and we are filing a lawsuit on Monday to stop this craziness that's taking place. And we all need to understand that this administration is trying to take us backwards. When you look at DEI and getting rid of DEI, they're trying to take us backwards. Think about the craziness
whatever it was when he spoke. Only two sexes, what was it he said? Only two genders, male and female. How happy he was when he said we're getting rid of DEI. And it goes on and on and on and on. They're making it more difficult for us to vote. I live in a state in Texas, Ruth and I do, with the governor in a wheelchair. That's making it more difficult for others in a wheelchair like him to vote. Think about that. And I've been able in Georgia to feed people and give them water. You know, when they're voting, they've gotten rid of straight ticket balloting in Texas only to try to stop us from our right to vote. And I would just say this to all of you. We can't sit here and be quiet about this. You know, when I come to Selma, what I think about when I cross that bridge is not so much the 7th, March the 7th. I think about the 6th, the night before, when those brave citizens were in their homes, probably loving on their loved ones, kissing them, looking at pictures, and saying to themselves, I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow, because I know those police officers are on the other side of that bridge. But guess what? They did it anyway. Why did they do it? They did it for us, right? So we cannot sit back now in times like these and be quiet. We need to fight back. We have a saying in the union, when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Trust me, we're going to fight and we're going to win, and it's going to start by taking back in the midterms the House and hopefully the Senate.
Amen.
That's where we start. Thank you.
Claude Cummings, Claude and Ruth. Thank you, thank you. Come on, you gonna take it?
Thank you for it's 2 minutes. I promise this is my 3rd event today. And everywhere I go, I have to tell you something that we've omitted for 60 years. A story about him is in this paper, but it's not long. J.L. Chestnut wrote a full story about him in his book. C.J. Adams is the grandfather of the voting rights movement. Says C.J. Adams, he fought in World War I. He established the first NAACP here. We always thought it was Mr. Boynton, but it was C.J. Adams who started the Dallas County Voters League. There's nothing about him in that museum, and I've tried all this week, but I did include him in this paper. C.J. Adams. He was ostracized here. Black people were afraid to be seen with him. He went to jail twice, and even the people in the jail were scared of him. He left here, your uncle took him away. He said, I'm just tired. Black people, I've tried, but I'm just tired. Remember who? C.J. Adams. One other name. You know about Jimmy Lee Jackson, but you didn't know that a white doctor killed him. You thought the white state trooper killed him. He shot him and beat him, but it was a white doctor who killed him. Tomorrow night we're going to be honoring the nurse who was there. Miss Booker said Jimmy Lee was talking, doing well. When the black doctor gave him the operation, he came back to life, but they called in the white doctor and said, we got to give him another operation, and he died on the operating table. I just had to bring these facts up because it's so much we don't know. I didn't know your story. The last thing I want to say is I lost my keys, y'all, twice, and my phone. Let's ban DMI, divisive mega incompetency, because that's what's in the White House. Say, let's ban what? DMI, divisive mega incompetency. Thank you so much. See y'all in the morning.
All right, couple more and then we're gonna go into our panel on gun violence. First of all, someone else who was here, we're gonna go outside the country for a minute and head into Philly. How many of you all remember MOVE and the bombing in Philadelphia? Remember that? One of the survivors is here. And I think there was just some news recently and a milestone we reached on that. So we do well and glad to see, that's right. And that's one thing, everybody comes to Selma. And so when Pam walked in, I was like, oh my God, we haven't seen Pam. Pam Africa is here. Please give her a round of applause. Come on now.
I've been trying to get you out. Oh, you don't have, this is such a pleasure to be here. This is my first time in Alabama. But I come from the MOVE organization, the family that was bombed in 1985 and attacked by the Rizzo administration in 1978, and where one of their cops got killed in my family and was blamed for that, and they did 40 years in jail for a crime that everybody knew it was impossible for them to have done. We got every last one of them out. It took unity. It took unity in our communities around the world in order to do that. Mumia Abu Jamal, and innocent, and Sis here had it part of the tribunal we did for Mumia. Ayana, and she sung at Millions for Mumia. Dr. Eddie Glosson, and has always been a speaker out for, Mumia, as well as many people in this room. But I am so proud to be here because I love organizing. I love organizing and I love learning, and this is a mass field for organizing. This is a mass field for learning. I've learned so much since I've been here, and I got some things to say too. And this is a thought that I have, and I'm gonna be real fast. And because Trump don't give a damn about anything that's living. And it is showing he don't give a darn about the water. He don't give a darn about the air, the soil. He don't give a darn about white people, black people, Asian people. So what is it that he's going to replace to have his battle with? He think he's getting rid of everybody. Musk is the king of artificial intelligence.
Come on.
And he is the king of robots. In Philadelphia, they're making robot dogs, and they send them to Palestine. And in the stores, you walk around, and they're around you. He needs something that's other than human, because it is humans. It is people of all colors and things that's standing up and getting their way. That was just food for thought. I have something else I want to talk about tomorrow, but that's just one of my thoughts in what's happening, what he's doing today. They always show you futuristic movies, and all of a sudden you see the reality around you. I'm saying we better look all the way across the board, and don't forget that artificial intelligence. And we got all kind of eavesdroppers in our houses.
Right.
Right.
With minerals from our land in Africa.
That's right, taking it from Africa. But we got some people standing up in Africa.
That's right.
That's right. South Africa, yes indeed. Example for us. With that, I'm gonna close out because I am long-winded. I love being here.
Okay.
I love the tribunal because it showed both sides.
Where will you be tomorrow? You said you're gonna be.
I'm one of the inductees tomorrow. Right, so that's where I'll be at. But I'm gonna be at everything else, because this is a great learning experience. And also a collector of people to help do the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam Africa. Give her a round of applause. One more here, and Dr. Chavis, a few words. Then we'll hear from the Freedom Singers again. Amen.
Dr. Chavis.
And but first, I want our brother here. He shared something with us at the mass meeting tonight. I wanted him to share it now for the broadcast. Representative Prince Chestnut, who represents. We're in your district right now, right?
You're in my district.
District 67, y'all. Brother, share with the audience briefly. You mentioned a bill in particular last night, Back the Blue. Can you tell everybody about that, please? And please welcome Prince Chestnut, everybody.
Thank you, brother. The Back to Blue bill that was, it's part of the governor's Alabama safety plan. And the Back to Blue is a response to the defund the police movement, and so on and so forth. And so they have gone to the polar opposite extreme and wanted to make it almost impossible to hold a bad police officer accountable. So the tenets of this bill is that an officer, if he uses lethal force, or if he just uses excessive force, that he will be given not one, but 2 motion hearings initially after the, if he's going to be arrested, right? If he's, let's say he is indicted. Once he gets indicted, his lawyer can immediately file a motion to dismiss. Can also, for the document, the pleading document not being specific and particular enough. So like if anyone else commits a crime, it's a plain document, just a plain complaint reciting what the law is and saying that this person committed that crime. That's all that's required. But you have to plead with particularity, with specific facts if it's an officer. So that's the first step. So that's a motion to dismiss comes out. Then there'll be a self-defense motion, a stand your ground motion. That's a second one. Then there will be a third motion, which is an immunity motion. And so with that immunity motion, not only will you have to deal with the self-defense part, but you also have to look, and it's separate elements. It's separate. It will be a separate hearing. In that hearing, you would have to look at whether or not this officer violated clearly established law and whether or not he violated the person's constitutional rights when he did it. So if he used his discretion, and the judge, it says that the judge has to use, he has to put himself from the vantage point of the officer, and you have to assume good faith on behalf of the officer. Yeah, to the outermost perimeter of his discretionary authority, right? And let's say that all 3 motions are denied. Well, guess what? Baked in the law is there will be a mandatory opportunity to have it to go to the appellate court. And the appellate court will review what the trial court judge did to see if he made error. And automatically. And then if it gets past that point, it finally gets a chance to proceed to trial, then he can bring back the immunity defense and charge a jury so that now the jury is looking at something that the judge has already looked at and said that he stepped out of bounds. But now the jury is now sitting there trying to figure out law, not just facts, but now law also. And under those circumstances, I mean, how many prosecutors are going to bring charges? Yeah.
You are, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I want to also, and right after that bill passed out of the House, the next bill that came up was a bill, an enhancement bill. So in that enhancement bill, if an officer seeks to make an arrest, resisting arrest is a Class A misdemeanor. But if there's a resistance, and that resistance causes any injury to any person or the officer, then it gets augmented to the next grade. So a Class A misdemeanor becomes a Class D felony. And so if the officer is attempting to make an arrest and the guy pushes away and he runs, and then the officer runs after him, he stumbles and he falls and he hurts himself, felony.
Yeah, yeah. The bill number, do you know, off the top of your head?
I'll get it to you before we leave.
This is your representative, folks, and he's going to be keeping you informed about that, okay? You looking?
Now, the immunity bill is HB 202. That's the number of the immunity bill.
I'm from Florida.
Uh-huh.
So we've been dealing with qualified immunity for years, since the 80s, actually. Yeah. So what he's talking about, we've been dealing with, but some of us have, I'm not an attorney, I'm a statistician. So understand that, I'm a stat person people call. We have some laws and some things that can help you dealing with that. Can I make this one mention? Check, and we have 67 counties in Florida. Each county can have their own use of force metrics, and each city can have their own use of force metrics. And you gotta see if it even lines up with that. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're finding that's what we're getting beat a lot of times with the use of force metrics.
Right, right.
I'm sorry, she asked for the other bill.
Right.
So HB 202 is the first one. That's a police immunity bill. And HB 265 is the other bill where if you flee from an officer and the officer happens to hurt himself, it goes into, it could just be clumsy, and it will go to a felony.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, thank you, Representative Prince Chestnut. Give him another round of applause. Now, we want to hear from the OG himself, who is still out here on the front lines.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He has been, as I said, he started as a teenager with Dr. King in the SCLC. He's one of the few people we still have with us who actually knew and interacted with Dr. King himself. He was a member of the Wilmington 10, a political prisoner, former president of NAACP. He now is the president of the NNPA, which represents all our black newspapers. The chair of the board of the NNPA is here, by the way, Bobby Henry, Dr. Bobby Henry, from Florida. You got folk up here from Florida, man. You need to talk to these folks. What city in Florida you from, ma'am? What city?
I'm in Orange County.
Orange County.
Florida.
Okay, where are you, Bobby? In he's in Broward, right? He's in Broward. Yeah. So you leaving, Anaya? You gonna go? So he is the president of NNPA, National Newspaper Publishers Association. We still have over 200 black newspapers, y'all. And we need to support black newspapers. And you'd be surprised how many people still get their regular information from our black newspapers. Some folk, if it ain't the black newspaper, it didn't happen and it ain't real. Amen? And that's okay. And we're working on to bringing those papers up to make them more digital and build websites so everybody, even building a black newspaper app and improving on that. So he's doing that. I also want to shout out one of the members of the NNPA, the Greene County Democrat, John Zippert. Look at John, y'all. We love John Zippert. He's been on the battlefield a long time too. So, Dr. Chavis, your thoughts and reflections as always. He's somebody, he always comes to Selma. The Reverend Dr. Benjamin Franklin Chavis Jr. Yeah, that's right. And y'all saw him, he was a heck of a witness today, wasn't he?
Thank you. I'll be very brief. First, I want to thank God for allowing all of us to be back in Selma, Alabama. We should always be grateful and thankful for the opportunity to fight for freedom. Fighting for freedom is part of our DNA. As I listen to my colleagues, what can I say? I grew up in the movement. I didn't decide to join the movement. I had no choice. My great-great-great-great-grandfather was the Reverend John Chavis.
That's right.
First brother to get to Princeton. He was the first Presbyterian minister ordained in the United Church of Christ, African brother. But what I'm telling you is that after the Nat Turner insurrection, in Southern Virginia in the 1830s. The state of Virginia, the state of North Carolina, the state of South Carolina, the state of Georgia, the state of Mississippi, the state of Arkansas, and the state of Louisiana all passed a law making it a felony to teach blacks how to read and write.
That's right.
So my great-great-great-grandfather was a teacher. So they allowed him, Dr. Glad, in Raleigh, North Carolina, to teach whites, but couldn't teach blacks. Because he had a little something in his DNA, he set up an underground school in Granville County, where I'm from, Oxford, North Carolina. My family has been in Oxford